Want to expand the reach of your content? Start a podcast. Feature industry experts on your show and leverage the influence and reach of your guests to grow your brand. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I am your host for today's episode, Nikki Ivy with Sweetfish Media. Guys, I've got with me today Amanda Mountain, who is Vice President of Marketing Communications at SAP. Amanda, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nikki. Good morning.
Hi. I'm so glad you came to talk to us today. Guys, Amanda's going to be talking with us about digital marketing. More specifically, we're going to be talking about the role of building customer journeys and digital trust through digital commerce channels, and how you guys listening can use those channels to up your game when it comes to customer experience and the customer journey. But before we get to all of that, Amanda, I would love it if you would just give us all a little bit of background on yourself and what you guys have been up to over there at SAP.
All right. So Nikki, thank you for having me on today. And I do hope that my voice holds up for our whole chat. I had the pleasure of attending our SAP Tech Ed event in Las Vegas last week. And as you can imagine, that's a hands-on technical education and developer community event. And it was great to meet with so many of our customers and partners and developers. But the trade-off seems to be that I lost my voice by Friday. And I've been slowly gaining it back over the week. And I have some water here with me. But if it fails, I apologize in advance. And I will resume talking as soon as I can.
Oh man, say no more. Nothing like a conference or a Vegas trip, either one, to have you lose your voice. So thank you for overcoming that to talk to us today. And so I'll make sure. Well, I want you to talk, but I'll try and keep it short-winded on my end. So let's get into it. How can, I know you guys are leading by example over there at SAP, and I'm looking to hear a little bit of what your 13 years of experience has, taught you with respect to digital marketing and the relationship to customer experience. But just talk really broadly about how B2B companies can use digital to build that customer-centric enterprise.
Well, great. So maybe a little bit of background on SAP Digital Commerce, which is the unit actually that I'm responsible for marketing for. And we're all about making it simple for everyone to do business with SAP. So this is an example, as you said, of a B2B company moving to digital. And my unit is actually responsible for that. So we look at the whole life cycle from discovery to adoption to purchase to renewal. And by everyone, making it simple for everyone, I mean from our end users at the customers to their line of business executives to their procurement counterparts. I also refer to our partners who are able to offer their solutions digitally through the work that we do. So we try to make it an end-to-end digital customer experience, not just of SAP solutions, but also the innovation from our ecosystem. And we even look at making it simpler for the traditional SAP salespeople, because we take an omni-channel approach, which means digital and traditional working in tandem, not digital as a replacement, but rather an augmentation. And maybe the most visible manifestation of our work is on SAP.com and our SAP store. where we have a growing portfolio of solutions available for purchase in a few clicks. And talk about simple. I mean, to get to that, to get to a few clicks, we had to collapse a process with sales, legal, taxation, procurement, payment that previously could take weeks or months, and that's down to seconds. So every day we get up and we ask our customers, how can we make this even better for you? And so that is, I think, the way that we really use it, B2B commerce to help improve the customer experience.
I love that. You gave me a couple things that really, really stood out. I like the way you talk about digital as you said, an augmentation and not a replacement. I think that's so key. And it's how you really remove friction when you're looking to improve the customer experience, right? Is you make sure that you're serving, like you said, everyone. And yes, it makes sense to look to the future and make sure that you are future proof as folks are saying when it comes to what your digital strategy is. But I love that you guys are, like you also said, looking at the entire ecosystem and not leaving anyone behind in that equation. It's a really smart strategy, and it is truly customer centric. So tell the folks how, because I know there are folks out there who could learn a lot from what you guys did. So how have the changes in customer behavior affected B2B digital purchases, and how do you guys specifically address that?
So I think everybody is familiar with kind of the interchange or interplay B2C to B2B. And the fact that, consumer experiences are really setting the bar for what people now expect in a business environment. But B2B sales is also a complex environment. And you have to recognize that you need to let the customer lead a little bit. So, for example, one of the very first things that we rolled out for online purchasing was the ability to make a credit card payment. And that's something, when we talk about future proofing, I truly believe in the future that is going to be, a must-have on the B2B commerce side. You've got to be able to take credit card, but also a variety of other payment types. But what might be surprising, at first glance or, from an outside perspective, is that the B2B consumers that we work with at SAP maybe weren't quite ready for just the credit card payments. They have told us, and we just finished doing a study with a research firm, Futurum Research. And, one of the things, we haven't released the results yet, but you get a sneak peek. One of the things we found is that B2B buyers still want to collaborate around a purchase. There's usually more than one person involved. That's very, very different from a consumer experience where, it's one person in their pajamas on the couch on a Saturday afternoon. We all know the stereotype of that, but the business purchase is being done a little bit differently. And it's usually not one person by themselves. It's usually a small group, and there's some collaboration that needs to take place as part of that. And they tend to still collaborate via email, by the way. I mean, it's not that there aren't other kind of workplace collaboration tools in use, but the B2B buyers we talked to for this study are still collaborating via email. And so they want the ability to share the shopping cart, share a proposal or a quote, via email. So, we did a lot to make the credit card transactions happen. But what we've had to come back in and add is the ability to create a PDF and send it to your counterparts. So I think the real way that the customers are kind of driving this change is they definitely expect the simplicity and the flexibility and the transparency of a consumer transaction, but they also want some of the more complex and nuanced aspects of B2B to be digitized for them. So they don't want to have to go in to a big meeting with 20 people and the salesperson and legal, but they do want to be able to pull other people into the decision, and they want that collaboration and that flow kind of digitized and made simpler for them.
I really I don't want anybody to miss this, right? Because you're painting the picture in my mind of this experience that I'm having. So I'm going on a vacation to Miami with my best friend, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to wear. And there's a lot of sharing of shopping carts happening. and I take for granted that level of easily facilitated collaboration. I mean, look, I can, share. It gives me the option. Can I share this cart to her on, Facebook Messenger, or do I want to share it? There's the option to share it in a Slack channel sometimes even. And so I take that for granted in the B2C experience. And like you're talking about, we're thinking so forward a lot of the time that we're all the way at, step 3, which is make sure that we can take the credit card. And we skipped a couple steps, it sounds like, when it's like, can they just share their cart? How do we facilitate the fact that they're still on email? Because I've heard a lot of folks recently talk about, this idea that we're looking at in B2B, we're looking at buying teams versus buying individuals. And this idea of the decision maker persona has given way to these buyer teams. And the more you remove friction from that. But what I, as a salesperson, sort of keyed in on at first was, okay, well, then the contact that I'm speaking with, I need to arm them with the right information to be able to give to the rest of their team. What I missed was, how do I make that information easily shareable? And that's what you just talked about. And I think that's really smart and really key for folks listening who are on this journey to, facilitating the customer experience. And so to that end, right, what are some of the top 3, the things that you mentioned, facilitating their, sharing of carts and things like that, but what are some of the top 3 trends in digital sales that are most important to B2B brands right now?
All right. So I think if I have to narrow it down to 3, because I do actually think a lot of things are converging in the industry. So, there's probably like 7 trends, but if I try to condense into 3, I think we'll be talking about experience economy overall as the driver of sales. I think we'd be talking about ubiquitousness of commerce that is happening everywhere, and then the right and smart use of data. So I go to that first one, and we're talking about the experience economy. With B2B transactions, you do really need to understand the full customer journey in a constant, always-on kind of way. So you need to think about roles and personas that you need to interact with, and also the roles and personas that they're interacting with. So we just talked about that collaboration aspect. But you need to be able to do that, and then without the customer having to tell you, that context over and over. For digital commerce at SAP, that also means working in tandem with our AEs. As I mentioned, digital augments the traditional sales process so that everything happens in context of the overall relationship. So, as a customer, if I have interacted with one person at your company, I expect that level of information to carry over to all the other channels I interact with. And in the case of something like enterprise software, there's a really special relationship often between the account executive or the account manager and that customer. And there's a lot of information there that they expect that, that personal touch, that context to carry over to their whole relationship with SAP. But they also want the ease and simplicity of the digitalization. So there's a balance to be found, and you don't want to disconnect the channels. It's just is really important to make it seamless and one relationship, both analog and digital. On the commerce is happening everywhere front, on the go, on different devices. And so commerce capabilities need to be built in such a way that they're always available when the customer needs them. And that universal element really bridges the gap between kind of brick and mortar and the digital world for consumers. So
for sure,
your tablet needs to work just as well as your laptop. If you pick up the phone and talk to somebody, that needs to be reflected, the next time and the next way you encounter that company. And then data needs to be harnessed for that context. So, You can have a bunch of disconnected data about a customer. It doesn't mean anything until you put it in context and then figure out how the brand can support the buyer journey for them. And it's all to make their decision process easier and more seamless, and to understand what they want and when they need it. And with the caveat, which I think most people are familiar with at this point, without being creepy. So personalize to help me. Don't personalize on information that you do not have permission to use.
Right. Yeah. It seems simple, but even I would say, even if you have permission to use that information and you're personalizing on it, just does it advance the relationship, or is it sort of a transparent tactic to get my attention and have this sort of, very superficial fame, show me, you know me strategy? If you can see the seams of that strategy in the personalization, there's almost nothing more obnoxious, for lack of a better term, as a buyer. I've been on both sides of it. I've done it. I've been the girl who's been like, hey, I saw you just open my email a few seconds ago. Do you want me to call you on the phone? And so that's not effective. Yes. Even though I have some implied permission to know that they just opened the email, it doesn't advance the relationship at all. So yes, you will get no arguments from me on that front. I really love the way that you have laid these things out. I want to get to these other couple of points, but I do want to also make sure that I'm respectful of your time. But there's a really interesting question here that I just want to make sure that we just wrap this up for folks who are pursuing the type of balance that you talked about, and up against things like you just mentioned, the term disconnected data. I think everybody out there has their own version of how they face that in their own business lives. But overall, what are some of the key takeaways that you found during your 13 years at SAP when it comes to B2B commerce and maintaining the customer's trust digitally?
So number one, and if you can't do this, don't bother. Be transparent. 100% transparency if possible. And that means, price transparency, and also for us, free trials or even paid proofs of concept. But the fact is, people need to know what they're getting, why the terms are the way they are, and what they're going to pay. And if you can't meet that expectation of transparency, you shouldn't be in the B2B commerce business. So, try before you buy is not optional anymore. And again, I mentioned the sneak peek into the study that we just completed, which was on the digital buying of enterprise software. And the initial findings, were that nearly 90% of organizations consider product trials to be important in their digital buying process. 90%.
Wow.
85% of businesses rate one-on-one online product demos or video product demos as very important to their buying process. And for 4 out of 5 organizations, they're willing to even do paid proofs of concept. So if it's a more involved product where a free demo or free, and not a demo, demos are always free, but a free trial might be very, very difficult or costly to do. They're even willing to pay to be able to test things out and try it, with their real data in their real environment. They want to test and try and touch and have all their questions answered before they make a purchase.
That's incredible. So I already know I have to have you back on the show after y'all release this study. And what I want to do is be like, look, here are the top of few things that we found. That 90% is killer. Here are the things we found. Here's how you address them. And I know we would help a lot of folks out with that information. But until then, now that I've successfully picked your brain, Amanda, and you have given us so much, it's time for us to talk about what you're putting in your brain. So tell us about a learning resource that you engage with that is informing your approach that's just got you excited these days.
All right. So for me, this is something I've been trying out for maybe the last 6 to 8 months. And somebody that I know and respect very much had brought this up. I don't know, we were having coffee or something, and the idea just sort of sunk into my head, and I couldn't let go of it. It kept coming back, and I'm like, okay, now I have to do this. and is the concept of reverse mentoring. So instead of, as you mentioned a couple times, 13, almost 14 years at SAP, typically I'm sought out as a mentor or a coach by folks, who are entering the organization or, in a point in their career where they're looking to grow. But what's really useful for me now is the opposite, and seeking out actively people who are new, who are new to the organization, are early in their careers, are, perhaps even, Gen Y, not millennial, and learning from them how they think, how they approach things, what their opinions are. So instead of me talking at them, it's me listening and asking lots of questions. And the things that I have learned are invaluable, and they can be, as impactful as me figuring out a different way to talk to a board member because of what, somebody on an internship rotation said to me, as it is also facilitating my ability to also interact with my own children because I learned what some different emojis meant that I didn't know or understand previously.
I love it.
So I highly recommend it. Hands-on, reverse mentor, find yourself a young millennial or a Gen Y to talk to.
I love that so much. I kind of fell into that myself. We recently had a gentleman come on. His name is Travis King. His intro episode is out there for you guys who are listening. And he's 10 years my junior. And he has come on to co-host some of the B2B growth episodes. And our sales meetings typically have ended up just me listening to him and all his little hacks to just how to interact with the world around him. Because there's so many things that would never even occur to me that would make things so much easier in my day to day, that listening to him and seeing how he gets things done have really helped me out with. And so I love this idea so much. I just wouldn't have thought to call it reverse mentoring, but that's exactly what it is. And gosh, here you go again, giving us more stuff. So I know, Amanda, that everybody out there listening, just like me, has become a fast fan of yours. They're going to want to keep up with you. Tell us how folks can connect with you.
So I would recommend Twitter. It's AL Mountain is my Twitter handle. Not that you can't find me and get me on LinkedIn, but I respond a lot faster on Twitter. LinkedIn is something I check periodically, and Twitter I'm on every day. So that would be my recommended channel. And then, hey, if you're interested in enterprise software, I would go out and look at sapstore.com, because it'll help kind of visualize some of the stuff that I talked about earlier.
Thanks so much. Like I said, I mean it. We'll have to have you back on again to dive deeper into that report you guys had come out. Gosh, you were just a wealth of knowledge and so much fun to talk to. Thanks for coming on, Amanda.
It has been my pleasure, Nikki, and I can't wait to come back and talk about the report when we publish.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.